Hey, all you Arizona lovers. This is the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose.
And I'm your producer, Brittany.
And here at Finding Arizona Podcast, we collect the local stories of all entrepreneurs and from around the valley. So join us at findingarizonapodcast.com, where you can hear every episode and see it as well at
YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment below who you want to see next on our show. And when you're ready to start your podcast, you found the right spot. Found House, your next podcast production company.
Now, let's get back to the show. Score big with SeatGeek. Whether it's concerts, sports, or live events, SeatGeek has you covered. Use code FindingArizona to get a fantastic $20 discount on your SeatGeek tickets. Catch your favorite live events hassle-free with extra savings. Visit SeatGeek.com and make every experience unforgettable. Welcome back to the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose. And as always, we bring in fantastic guests every week. This week is no different. I'd love to introduce everyone to Kathleen. She is behind Compost Crowd. I was a crowd compost or compost crowd.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just want to say thank you again for joining us and talking to us about this. I want to say that we've had someone come in, and I find composting enjoyable. I am besides a podcaster, landscape architect in my daytime, and so anything that has to do with the natural world or just bettering our lives so that we can connect and kind of be more in touch with the natural world and as a whole, I always enjoy talking about and getting into, because it's kind of right up my lane and right up my enjoyment. And I find it very fascinating that you're actually you do primarily up north area of Arizona. Yeah. And so that's my neck of the woods. I actually grew up on the Hopi Reservation.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So that's where I spent most of my life. And now I live down here, but I always go back and actually going to go back soon. But I love all of these things because they interconnect into what you do in your life. So I'm going to ask you the question that we typically ask everyone is give us a little bit of your origin story and how not only this business came into your life, but you also are a conscientious brand kind of person. And, you always look into this kind of like world beyond just the business, but what it can bring to the overall community and environmental side to it. So give us some insight on that.
Yeah, gosh, I feel like, which direction do I start in, right? So I'm Kathleen, and my husband and I co-own this business, Compost Crowd, which is a food scraps collection service that currently serves Flagstaff and Sedona. Yes. And we have been in business since January of 2018. Okay. And the way that this business actually got started is kind of fun because of when we're recording this podcast. So my childhood best friend, I'm from Chicago originally.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, she had moved from Chicago, where she was getting her master's, to her first big job in Columbus, Ohio. And she went from living in a house with roommates and a yard and being able to compost their food scraps right there to being a single 20-something living in an apartment by herself. And she was sort of bothering all of her coworkers, like, do you have chickens? Can you take my food scraps? Like, I can't throw this stuff in the trash for so long, doing that. Yeah, exactly. And then when I went to visit her, she's like, you're never going to believe it. I found this company that comes to your house and will just come and get it. And she's like, you can pick if they come like once a month or once every 2 months, like 2 weeks or once every single week. And she's like, and it's so great if I'm not going to be home, I just tell them. And I immediately, as an environmentalist, as someone who deeply cares about the planet, the climate crisis, our personal ability to influence that one way or the other, I just thought, I cannot believe that Cleveland, Ohio is doing this, but not Northern Arizona. Yeah. This is wild, right?
Yeah.
And so I was doing other stuff professionally at that time, but it had always just been in the back of my mind. And in very early, like the first week of January 2018, there was kind of like a lightning in a bottle moment that if we were ever going to pitch this to the community, there was like an event that would have made sense to put it together. And we had the opportunity to we had this conversation like early January, and then it was like January 21st or something that we'd have to have everything ready. Yeah. So in less than 3 weeks, we did like LLC, payment processor, basic website, 10 buckets, 10 lids, 10 stickers, business name, of course. and we like launched it and we got one customer that day. And then between that day and like kind of the middle of February, we had 40 customers and we thought, oh, okay, like proof of concept.
It's going, it's starting.
Yeah, exactly. And then so we've grown from there, but I feel like that might answer your first question. And then as far as, I'll leave it there. I feel like I could just go on and on, but that's
it's wonderful.
That's the origin story, I guess.
Yeah. It's beautiful. That one, it's like, I always ask this question because I'm a person who likes, like we were talking about this off air, was like, when it comes to storytelling, I love to get to the first question, which is kind of like this, the roots of the tree. And because I always feel like that is where a lot of people don't get a chance to kind of experience and dig up and kind of, sift through. And one of the biggest part about it is like stories like that with your friend, where it's like, it's just so simplistic, where sometimes, people with businesses, they either are like born into it, where it's like a family member passed their kind of genetics or their ideologies down to them, and they kind of took off and ran with that. Or it's like, like myself, where I bumped into the idea where it's like, I was screen printing t-shirts and meeting these business owners and just, kind of really chatting them up to kind of learn about them, because I thought they were always interesting and wanted to kind of pick their brains about what they do. And so when I was doing the t-shirts, I was doing podcasts, and I was like, I think I can do this alongside with what I'm having these conversations about. And I think it would kind of relate really well and work out kind of well for the business owners. And I think people would enjoy it. And so it kind of evolved and snowballed. But it's like this story where it's like, it's a blossoming, blooming firecracker, which is, you hear it from secondhand from your friend. And then it's like, like this is it. This is the idea. This is what we're going to run with. And so I love that. And can I ask, so you grew up on the East Coast, or was this friend just kind of someone that you kind of met in passing or something like that?
Yeah. So I grew up on the southwest side of Chicago. I went to school in Michigan. And so this friend actually, like, her parents and my parents live 4 houses away from each other right now. Okay. Like to this day, it's actually this friend's birthday. That's why I was saying it's kind of serendipitous that we're talking about this today. Nice. But I grew up, my husband and I both grew up in the Midwest. Yeah. We've been in Arizona for almost 11 years.
Wow.
So this is home for sure. This is where we're going to be. This is what we identify with for sure. But we're both from the Midwest originally.
So what's the connection with the environment and environmentalism for you, and especially with you and your husband? How did that work out in your relationship?
That is a really good question. And I don't have a totally perfect answer for that, but
that's okay.
Long story short, after I graduated from my undergrad program, I'm going way too far back. Forget that part. I moved to Costa Rica for a little while. I moved back. My husband and I had known each other for a long time. We got together. He hiked the Appalachian Trail. And when he came back, we were like, he's like, I just can't sit, in an office anymore. Like, let's go see the world, blah, blah, blah. So we saved up a bunch of money, sold our vehicles, and we traveled internationally for almost 2 years.
Nice.
Or about a year and a half. And during that time, he read something about not eating dairy and not eating meat and not eating sugar. And we were just like normal omnivore humans, at this point or whatever. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, we're just not eating dairy anymore. It's like really inflammatory. And I was like, I put, cow's milk in my coffee every day. Like, do I get a send off pizza? Like, what is this? And that was sort of the tip of the iceberg of us sort of just questioning things in our lives, you know what I mean? Like, what's in this, what's on our vegetables, and like what's in this body lotion, and are these candles made out of petroleum? And it sort of like led us down this path of, our impact on things, what's in the stuff that we're consuming, and questioning stuff. And inevitably it just came down to we also, like I said, he hiked the Appalachian Trail. We've both always been very connected to nature in that way. And so it was really just sort of a cascade effect of questioning things and wanting to be more responsible for ourselves, causing no unnecessary harm to the world around us, and just being more conscientious of how the choices that we make, whether it's like what's at the end of our fork, or if we're using our dryer versus just hang drying our clothes, or if we're buying, fair trade, clothing versus something maybe made in a sweatshop. And so it just was this cascade of questioning and living more deliberately, living more in alignment with our values. And we both fiercely care, about the environment.
That's wonderful. I mean, I just, again, it's one of those things where it's like, you go back to the storytelling of like, the person as a whole and like what their ideologies are and their goals are. And so that's another thing that kind of helps develop people's outlook on businesses and the business owners themselves is, are they about it or not? A lot of the times, you can kind of hear these stories of like the business owner isn't really the happy-go-lucky person behind the brand. And so one of the things that I enjoy hearing too sometimes is like, the person is really trying their best to live this life that they cultivate and want to give to others as well, and give to their customers as well. So I think it's really beautiful that you guys, one, you can kind of say it's like, hey, look, we started here, but then we developed our ideologies and our goals and what we questioned and what we were thinking about at the time to now develop this new outlook and want to help on this platform at this level and these kinds of things. So it's really great that's like, it's like, hey, look, we know where we were at. This is where we're at now. And we've learned and developed and now know better and want to do better. And so it's really beautiful that there are people like you who's like, hey, look, we're not perfect, but
Exactly.
we're trying our best here. And so that is really great. I myself, again, I try my best to do what I can at my own home here down in Phoenix. And so I can kind of tell you, it's like, I have met in passing and doing this podcast, it's like other people like farmers who are trying their best to compost and do the work down here at the different kind of city gardens that are here down in
Mhm.
the city, along with it's kind of funny, we learned about worm casts and
Mhm.
using worms for composting too, and that was
Magic.
and that
Yeah.
magic behind that. And
Yeah.
she was a business owner who was like trying to promote her side, which is giving people and becoming a nonprofit who gives out the buckets with the worms inside of it. And it was such a beautiful story of like, this works on this scale and you can make a big difference with not only where you live, but also it's like on a grander scale of like you take a couple of homes throughout the city and you can kind of really make a big difference in the large scale of environment of like, composting all of your material together and making a big difference on that scale and starting community gardens and et cetera, and things like that. So I'm a proponent of like every little bit matters. Like no matter how much you think it does, it does, because you are one little brick of a larger wall. And so you can really make a big difference by doing your part. And I just wish I want there to be more people that
Mm.
believe in that kind of ideology. So I would love to get into a little bit of like how one you not only had this conversation with your better half of like, look, this concept, the proof of concept, let's go about it. Was he, I imagine he was full support, but it's like after that first kind of 40 customers, it's
Mhm.
like now you got to start of thinking
Yeah.
methods. Like
Yeah.
where do we go from here?
Yeah.
How are we best using this composting, and how do we service these customers on the best for our time and benefit, but also for their time and benefit. So it kind of give us a little bit of like maybe the first couple of struggles of like, what you had to do to kind of make this work.
Yeah, solid questions. So, first off, it's really funny because I was the only one. I was running a coaching business
Okay.
when I had this idea, and so I had always been like, "Come on, let's start the coaching business." And he's like, I'm hearing you want me to start the the compost business," and he's like, "Nah," you know what I mean? And so basically, I got to the point where I wanted to do something that was like more meaningful than I felt like what I was doing anyway. So this taking off was a gift,
Mhm.
instead of just being us with our idea of this
Yeah.
would be cool for this community, this would be amazing to engage our neighbors in this way. The neighbors were responding and saying, yes, please, I want this. And that was extremely encouraging and heartening. And so when we had those, that sort of proof of concept in West Sedona, it was like, maybe I can start stepping away slowly,
Yeah.
from this. The funny story is that when we started the business, we didn't even own a truck. We drove a Mini Cooper. So we started those first couple of months of
Wow.
reflection with our Mini Cooper. And it was like, okay, maybe it's time to get a more real, more practical vehicle for this,
Yeah.
if this is going to work. But because we both went into it thinking, we're going to put this out there in the world, we're going to go all the way, we're going to, But if people don't bite, we don't want to be out tens of thousands of dollars because we don't need to be,
Yeah.
So we were able to grow organically, or grow at the rate of cash, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
We bought a used vehicle. We always, prioritize used vehicles, like reliable used vehicles. And at that point, what was happening is we had a booth at the local Sedona Farmers Market, and we had people from the village of Oak Creek, which is not far away, but it was just not a place that we were going to service right away. We couldn't have like one house be 20 minutes away from the next closest house and be, efficient.
Yeah.
And so we had several people coming to our booth at the market saying, hey, what about us? And I said, okay, well, if we can get 10 houses in the village, we'll expand to the village. And so that's what we did. And then we started having restaurant owners coming to our table saying, hey, we know you're not ready for restaurants yet, but when you're ready, give us a call.
Awesome.
And so then we expanded into restaurants, and we had to figure out how that was going to work. And you figure it out as you go. You're like, oh, I think this is going to be the pricing, or I think this is what we'll be able to handle, or how we'll do it. But you have to learn in real time, because what might work for a business just like ours in New Jersey or in Florida or in Phoenix, it doesn't maybe necessarily lend itself to the way things are happening here. We live in a very touristy town, very transient town. There's a lot of quirky things happening, and so. And then we started servicing events, like events that were prioritizing zero waste efforts and stuff like that.
Beautiful.
And then we moved into Flagstaff, and the thing with Flagstaff was being able to position ourselves within the community. So we were able to be at the farmers market there and be engaging with the community, hear from them what they wanted. Very quickly learning we were going to, because Flagstaff is substantially bigger than tiny little Sedona, we were going to have to separate it into sort of two territories, again, in order to be efficient. And all of these things we were just learning on the go, and what's phenomenal is that my husband and I are very different people, which is why I'm doing something like this, and he's much more quiet and soft-spoken, and I'm like, let's talk. He and I have always, despite being very different, have always agreed on how to run the business, how to grow the business, what to prioritize, who's better at which tasks, and that has been vital, pivotal, it's like foundational for everything pretty much since the beginning.
Wow, that's it. And there's two big parts in there that I want to get into. One is like working with your significant other. I work with mine, then she is basically the same thing as like she is the businessy side to my artistic. So yin and yang, and we fit really well together on prioritizing goals and who's efficient at doing what. And so that's one of the main things that I love to ask when you're working with your significant other and these types of businesses. It's like who's doing what, and also it's like how well are you guys communicating and making these goals happen and significant changes to the business, and how you guys move about in that coordination. The other aspect too is like you brought up significant differences in not only community but the environment as well, because you look at a smaller town like Sedona versus a bigger not so significantly larger than Phoenix, but it's like a significant city like Flagstaff, where you're dealing with, having to work yourself into those communities and wanting to help develop networks and things like that, so that you are efficient at what you guys are doing here for the services. So I'll get into this. What overall, like when you move from one little level of like, going to like, let's say you were saying Oak Creek and moving into Flagstaff, what are some significant pivots or pivotal key marks that you had to hit? So it's like, let's say if Oak was like 10 people, how many in Flagstaff were you looking to get at the first kind of initial signing up? And then would you or could you significantly build your network, let's say throughout the northern part, let's say going into Kingman or going into some of the other eastern parts, like you got Snowflake, you have just to name off a few, but it's like my even reservation of like Hopi right there near the Four Corners. Like, what are some of the significant things that you would be looking for to try and reach those communities to make your business kind of grow in that way?
Yeah, that's a super solid question. It's really relevant because we actually did just try to expand into a community that was not receptive, so that was a first for us. So exactly like you said. So for example, when we went into the village, we were like, hey, if we can get 10 households down here, that would be worth, the 17-minute drive from the next closest home. Right. And when we went into Flagstaff, we said we need at least 30. Okay. And we were astonished to see literally just putting, this was 7 years ago. It'll be, God, is it going to be 8 years or 7 years? I don't know what I'm talking about. A lot of years, but we've been in Flagstaff since just 1 year after we started. So we've been there for many, many years. And we said, hey, we need 30 households. We put it on like Facebook ads, and we basically filled those 30 houses from Facebook ads. You know,
awesome.
whereas like if we tried to do something like that in Sedona, like we'd be lucky if we got a click, let alone a sale. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's again a very different market, a very different marketplace. Consumer behavior is very different. And so what needed to happen was we needed to have that number of those number of households, and we also then had to dedicate a day to that route. So for example, we pick up in Sedona residential on Wednesdays, we pick up Flagstaff residential on Thursdays, right? So in order to go into another community, we would have to determine, are we going to give them an entire day? Are they going to become part of another route, for example? Yeah. And the way that we do it is the way we attempted, we just tried to go into Cottonwood. We had kind of always been told by both locals and leadership in Cottonwood, people are not interested in this. Well, and the people are just not interested in this. The values are not there for the environment or whatever. And we were like, you know what, if we're going to do this, we're going to go all the way out. And I spent a lot of money and a lot of energy trying to bring attention to it with the chamber, with local different things, and nobody signed up. And we had the exact same approach that we did when we went into those other areas, you know? So I think ultimately the community will tell you, you know, is this something that they want, something that they desire, something that aligns with their values? And that's essentially like how we would approach any sort of expansion is, hey, if this pilot test of X number of houses goes, then it will begin on this day. And if it doesn't go, then this is how we'll handle that kind of thing.
Yeah. So can I ask you this is like for, let's say, you know, Cottonwood and other cities that are going to be starting to pop up for you guys. Oh, I lost my train of thought, but the idea is the idea of like, let's go into like specifics here. It's like, what are the main benefits for this service? Like, what are some of you, let's go into like, kind of really not
why this is
understand
important?
Why this is so significant and so so important, so that not only the listeners can kind of learn and myself as well, but also to understand it's like you guys aren't just doing this out of like trying to collect money from people. There is significant benefits from having this kind of service available to those who want to do it and who want to see, you know, like I always say this, betterment of the future. It's like you're trying your best to like leave something behind for those who are younger than you, who the next generation, however you put it in your own terms, but it's like what significance comes from something like this?
Yeah. So first of all, the reason, I'm so glad that you asked this. Thank you. So I forget, you know, because you're like so in something. So the reason it's super important to divert organic material, compost, food scraps from the landfill is because a lot of people think like, okay, well, my banana will just decompose in the landfill. Like, what does it matter? And the thing is like, as you might imagine, our landfills are giant mountains of plastic because everyone sends their trash to the landfill in plastic bags, right? So the organic matter that is in the landfill is decomposing anaerobically, as in without oxygen, because it's covered under plastic, right? And when organic material decomposes anaerobically without oxygen, it emits methane. And methane is up to 87 times more damaging to the warming of the atmosphere on a 20-year timeline than CO2. So we think it's all about emissions from cars and, you know, take short showers and all these things. And yes, sure, all of those things absolutely add up. But methane is like, it's a couple of things. Methane, if we were to pull all of the methane out of the atmosphere, which we cannot do, we would immediately see the impacts of that within the next decade. If we were to pull all the CO2 out of the atmosphere, it would take over 100 years to see the positive impacts of doing that, right? So limiting methane is valuable both because it's substantially more damaging specifically to the warming of the atmosphere and because not doing it has more immediate impacts, right? So I always say, like, not everybody can own a Tesla, drive an electric vehicle, put in a solar array on their roof, you know, et cetera, right? Like buy only secondhand clothes and be vegan and never ride in a plane and never have biological children and all these things, right?
Buy your own chickens. You know, the things that go along with what you're trying to do. And what also, I just want to say, it's like, let's even break it down even further of like, you want to limit your trash too. It's like, well, what's another better way than limiting your trash than taking out a component of it already and limit, you know, smaller, bringing down the size of it even more significantly? Because let's say it's like, I've seen a couple of things like, let's talk now about it's like what compost, what like pieces are going into the compost? Are we're talking fruits, we're talking vegetables, what else are we talking about?
Hair from your hairbrush, tea bags, coffee grounds, eggshells. Yeah.
Dryer lint, like.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So what's great is, like, I feel like you touched on it, is one, you're dramatically decreasing your trash, so maybe instead of having your trash, paying to have your trash picked up weekly, maybe you get it picked up only bi-weekly now.
Yep.
Another thing that I love, and I guess it's different for every area because some trash companies insist on the plastic bags, but generally the reason we need plastic trash bag liners in our trash bag and our trash containers is because we have weird, slimy, miscellaneous liquid. Well, if you're putting all your weird, slimy, miscellaneous liquid into your compost bin, you can eliminate that plastic bag. I mean, if every household in America eliminated a single plastic bag, trash bag every week, I mean,
Yes.
we're talking about billions, right? Billions and billions of plastic bags that we could save. I mean, just as a side effect, but just to finish too, also like why the compost is so it's beneficial to divert organic material from the landfill because it avoids that potential methane being emitted.
Yep.
However, there's also really sexy benefits on the other side of it is, one, we're getting this stuff back into the ground. And like you said, you're from Northern Arizona, the ground is made of rock, basically.
Yep.
It's not really ready to just be super nutrient rich and fertile, So it's so valuable to be able to, when we grow food, we're taking minerals, nutrients from the earth. And then if we just send those minerals and nutrients to the landfill, we're not replenishing the bank account, right? We're just borrowing and not depositing.
Yep.
So we're taking that and depositing it back into the earth with our farm partner, and using compost in agriculture dramatically decreases not only the need for synthetic fertilizer, it decreases the need for water, like water usage, and it also decreases erosion. So there's this incredible part about keeping it out of the landfill. And then there's this other incredible part about just caring for the earth in this way and returning to the topsoil and things like that.
Yeah. It's just like, again, it seems so, significant to us because we understand a little bit of like the benefits of it. But it's, again, having these kinds of conversation of like, look, there's so many minuscule benefits, but long-term benefits. There's also these like just overall like your own bank accounts, like you're not paying as much. It may seem insignificant for like buying trash bags, but it's like long-term, you're spending less, you're getting back more. And so I would love to also get into, it's like you brought the idea of the nutrients and what you do for the composting. It's like, that's a secondary business too. It's like, you'll get something back in return too for these composts that you deliver to you guys. So do you guys do the soil back into the homes?
Yeah. So we partner with a local business, a local farm that uses so we bring them the material and it belongs to them. They turn it into compost. Yeah. They put it in their fields. They use it in agriculture. It's amazing. And then our customers are just as like a feature of their service with us, get an amount of compost back if they want it. We always joke that we don't just show up at people's houses and dump dirt on their porch.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's just an included feature of their service is that if people have a gardener, they want to put it on their houseplants, et cetera, that they're welcome to it as part of their service with us.
It's beautiful too. It's like, it's like if you want flowers or if you want to start your own garden, there's that reciprocating circle that's like, you get it back for yourself and you're doing your part to give into it and you get back. It's like, it's a beautiful cycle of like, you're not just losing something, you're getting something too as well. So it's always so beneficial when you get to hear all the things that is encompassing of your services. And it's really, I think it's one of those things like investments for the long term, I think really is something that we should all look at ourselves. It's like, do I want to leave something behind that's really significant and do my part? And, whether it's composting yourself or just doing the service to get rid of what you call the nasty little bits of like your trash or whatever you want to call it. But it's like, I think it's always good to say, hey, look at yourself. It's like, what am I doing to help leave a better tomorrow? So it's, I like what you guys are doing. And I can really stand in pride of like, this is a really cool business. And I think you guys are doing fantastic work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we did talk a little bit about like what you guys do to help expand your business. And that kind of leads into my questions of like, goal setting and things like that. But before I get into that, I would love to just get a little bit of like your daily routines of like, or the systematic routines of what you guys do. So I imagine that there's one part marketing where you're going to the farmers market and stuff like that. But what are some of the other elements that you particularly do as an owner and founder of this business and with your husband? Are you guys
Yeah.
on the trash route or like
Yeah.
pickup route and things
Yeah.
like that? And then, emails, like I'd love to get like an overall scope of like how that works out for you guys.
Yeah, yeah. So currently it's my husband and I, Brock, who do everything.
Nice.
And like I had indicated, we both are very clear about staying in our lane, who's responsible for what tasks. We don't really step into each other's roles. Brock does all of our routes. So he will be always
Nice.
the person coming to our customers' homes, to their restaurants and their kitchens, et cetera. He's the face of the service itself. And so he does that. And I always say he does the heavy lifting, literally. I had to do it a little bit earlier this year, and it's no joke, especially in the heat, that we're having now into the middle, it feels like, of November or something. But so Brock, we do commercial on Tuesdays and Fridays. And so he's in restaurants and businesses and things like that. And then we do, like I said, Sedona residential on Wednesdays and Flagstaff residential on Thursdays as of right now.
Nice.
And then as far as my roles, exactly, I exist in the marketing space, the customer service space. I'm doing emails, I'm making phone calls. A big objective that we have is to really be engaged in the community. So, of course, I do my best to be at as many farmer markets booths, whether it's in Sedona or in Flagstaff, to be having an actual relationship, meeting the people, answering their questions in the community, having a presence. But for example, like yesterday, we just partnered with the city of Flagstaff and we did a watershed cleanup, and we invited our compost crowd to be part of that. Yeah, and we're looking to partner with a local nonprofit to do a food drive either in November or December, where my vision is to have our customers leave an amount of like non-perishable food on top of their buckets, and then we grab the food and grab their bucket on their regular collection. Yeah, so we're always trying to engage the community in different ways. For example, like this is like a fun little thing, especially because you've got a kiddo, is that they estimate, the statistic is that approximately 1.3 billion pounds of pumpkins end up in the landfill following Halloween in the United States every year.
Yeah.
So we partner with the cities and we collect pumpkins. So we call it the pumpkin drop, and it's totally free to everybody. There's no, to our customers, to anybody who wants to do it. And the idea is to teach kids, just like you would not send your Christmas tree to the landfill, you would also not send your pumpkins to the landfill, Yeah. So we're capturing those things, and it's generally kids who have pumpkins, I guess is what I'm saying. And so you're teaching them at a young age. And again, it's just like a community engagement thing. So I'm doing stuff like that where I'm working with, just leadership in the community to be present, to be helpful, to bring awareness to what we're doing, to share the importance of what we're doing, and to help other organizations with their own objectives, if you will. So
Nice.
And of course, like customer service is a big part of what I do. My love language is like community and people and gift giving. So I'm very I don't know. It sort of suits me to be always dealing with the people and always making friends. And to me, it feels like I'm making friends. Like I'll stand at the booth of the farmers market, and people will literally walk up to me and touch their chest, and they'll be like, "I just moved here from X, Y, and Z place where I used to compost, and it hurts me to put my materials in the trash. I'm so glad I can compost with you." And they like touch their heart, and like we have this moment. And so just like, I love that it's like, you're my people, like this is why we started this business, is because I am you in that way. So yeah, I think that might answer your question about roles. I
love it. I really do love it, because again, it's those little moments where I think the best business owners will see those moments and just really find purpose again for what they do, and what their love for the thing that they're passionate about is, again, in those tiny moments of like, connection and understanding that you are making a significant influence on people and what they're trying to do for themselves and what they're trying to do for the community at large. It is absolutely pivotal to have those moments of reflection and moments of connection, because again, if you don't, I feel like you kind of burn yourself out, and you do really just kind of like lose yourself in the sauce. I'm like, it reminds me of like this. It's like what I do here in the podcast when I get stories or get DMs or just hands-on conversation, like one-on-one, when they say like, "Look, someone heard your episode or our episode, and they either bought something or was like, oh, great episode," or like they had a conversation. Like those moments are really special to me, because it was like, hey, I just did what I just did what I love doing, and you did your part, and it's just we were able to have that moment together, and that brings me so much joy. That it just really just makes my heart fill up of like, I did something, like I really did something. And so
Yeah.
that is definitely, it's beautiful that you have that as well. And it's really great that you can have those moments and still keep going and keep pushing and keep wanting to do better so
Mhm.
that, again, I think you guys are going to get bigger and bigger and take over the northern part of Arizona.
That's my hope. That's the goal. That's the vision for
Yes,
sure. For sure.
absolutely.
We've got our eyes on Prescott Valley right now. So
Yeah, and I really love that you again are like you're looking at those significant pivotal points of like holidays where it's like, the pumpkins, the trees and things like that where it's like it's pivotal to take advantage of those things that we take for granted of like
Mhm.
the removal of the tree and the removal of the pumpkin and things like that and making sure that you envelop yourself in those pivotal moments of those unique days. That's like, hey, look, we're gonna benefit from you buying that pumpkin. Let's make something good out of that.
Yeah.
Besides just the enjoyment and entertainment part of it, let's really use it to its full advantage. So I think it's really awesome.
Thank you.
Let's move forward to the goal setting and move forward into like what hopes and dreams, and hopefully our listeners can be able to help you out because I know that we have a reach out into the northern part of Arizona because it's my neck of the woods. I love going up there. I love being a part and spending some time up in Flag and spending time up in the res. I would love to kind of hear from you, the next step. Like you brought up not Camp Verde. I'm so
Prescott
sorry.
Valley. Yeah.
Prescott Valley.
Yeah.
You brought up Prescott Valley, and it's like those types of places. Not only that, but it's like, is there another significant piece of maybe the business that you
Mhm.
think that would be beneficial by adding more
Mhm.
eyes and ears to your network?
Yeah, definitely. So our primary focus is always residents. Like we always want to be engaging residents. My dream, my vision board is a bucket on every porch, in
Awesome.
Flagstaff, in Northern Arizona, in Sedona. I want more residents engaged. I want to be diverting their food scraps from landfill. I want them, leading by example for their children. I grew up in a house where there was always recycling. So to me, it is forever strange when I go anywhere and they're like, no, we don't recycle here. And I'm like, I want that to just be,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? What? Like you threw what? Okay. Not even cardboard, And so that's my, that's I should definitely say this is our big vision is always every household,
Mhm.
however that happens. I want a bucket on every porch. I want everybody diverting their food waste from the landfill. I want it getting back into the ground. I want us, engaging the community, providing an
Yeah.
option for everyone who's not doing backyard composting on their own. And that's why we exist is not everybody can. And then, of course, we love going into restaurants because they're creating a mass amount of
Yes.
of waste, and not even like waste like in a wasteful sense, but the ends of romaine lettuce and
Yep.
cabbage and all these different things, eggshells and in mass, and
On a
and
daily
that
basis.
on a daily basis. And what we've learned, is we personally, professionally have had really phenomenal relationships with all of the restaurants. Everyone that we had before COVID stayed right through us with the pandemic and is still with
Nice.
us. And I think that's just a testament to working a lot with owner operated other small businesses, the person who owns it is in the kitchen type thing. And what we're learning is it really comes from leadership. It's either the director of food and beverage, the owner, or the executive chef has to say yes to this. If it's
Yes.
somebody who doesn't understand the value of this, they just see it as another expense. But if they come from a kitchen or they come from a value set of absolutely, this is just doing business responsibly. We need to be diverting this material from the landfill. And the thing about that is like we weigh all the material we pick up from our commercial partners, right? So they have a report that says, hey, we diverted 600 pounds of, organic waste from the landfill this week, or on a weekly basis or whatever. And that's the equivalent to, taking this many cars off the road. It's going to turn into this much usable compost material for local agriculture. That's the equivalent of, planting X number of trees.
Yeah.
And so they can take that and make that, part of their social media campaign, bring that to their stakeholders and say, hey, look at this impactful stuff that we're doing. We actually are spending far less on our trash bill. We don't have our, groundskeepers carrying this across our resort, et cetera, et cetera. We're cutting down in labor in that way or spills all over the place or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, that's another big thing is just getting into those conversations with chefs, with owners, with organizations, resorts, et cetera, that want to do it. And then another really cool thing that we're just kind of like dipping our toe into is coming into offices. It would be, it would be like it's a bit of a different approach, because as you might imagine, in most offices and like break rooms, there's not going to be the same volume that you would have in a personal kitchen or a commercial kitchen, but there's still coffee grounds every day. There's likely banana peels and apple cores and stuff like that. And so it's a bit of a different thing. And it's something that's working really well in Phoenix. And so we're just partnering with another business entity to potentially bring the same service to offices and whatnot up here. Yeah. It's really, really cool. So
I love that, because I mean, I can tell from my own experience, like I work in an office of like 200, and just from the view of like, a significant amount of like, you can also kind of generate a graph of like, look, we composted this much, and we're bringing like you said, again, this much back into the natural environment. But we can also extract that data and also say, look, this is the health of our workers and how they are being conscious about what they eat, what they, what are they putting into their bodies. And this is the health level of our office. So it's like, you're not only, like we were saying before, it's like, it's not just one way. You can get back on those data-driven analysis of like what you put out and what you're getting back. And so I think it's so significant to move on to another area, an entity like an office building.
Yeah. And I think it's like it's like anything, when you present this to more people. For example, like I'll have, a young woman come up to me at the farmer's market, and she'll be like, I want to do this, but I have 4 roommates and I don't know if I can get them on board, but I'd be willing to pay for the subscription. And, maybe they'll throw me a few bucks. And then a year later, she'll call me and she'll be like, hey, I'm moving. I graduated from NAU or whatever, but my roommates want to keep paying for it. Can my roommate call you and put her credit card, And it's like, you know what I mean? Like one person brings it into the space, and all of a sudden there's this ripple effect of positivity, of behavior change, and that's the hardest thing for any business owner is behavior change, right? Or understanding consumer behavior or whatnot, And so to see things like that happening, if a manager or a boss or whoever brings composting into the break room, all of a sudden someone who didn't know anything about it or has no exposure to it is now more aware, of this behavior. And again, it's so invaluable because we can't all have the solar array and we can't all drive the EV, but we can very easily all put our banana peel in the compost bin instead of the trash bin,
Easiest point of access. That's, just try and remove all static from the excuse, or just like, do what you can with what you got. That's what I like to look at it as. And so kudos to you guys again for transitioning from one entity to another and trying to make the most benefit out of what you guys are able capacity wise to do with your own time, your own efforts and things like that. I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck. This is so like, again, when I see things like this, where it's just, again, benefits all the way around, no matter which way you look at it, from the customer side, from your business side, from the people actually like getting the compost and doing the work, it's like, it's so beneficial on so many levels. So there's no way that I when you see something like this, there's no way where you're not influenced to want to at least check it out and do your own research and want to maybe take a look and try and do it either yourself or go into actually saying yes to the business and like, here, I would love to pay you to take my compost.
Yeah. Well, and what's super cool, and I don't know if I can't remember if I told you guys this we should have probably talked about it before, but so we were actually just identified or voted or awarded or whatever the right word is by Green Living Magazine. Just did their annual 2024 Best of Arizona Awards. And Compost Crowd won 4 of them. And our farm partner where we bring all the material, they also won for sustainability. Yes. So when you're saying like how cool that is. So we won, it's still mind blowing to me. And I'm just kind of a humble person. So it's like a weird thing to be like, we won all these awards, but we were just voted Arizona's best eco-friendly small business.
Oh, that's so good.
So good. Best eco-friendly service for your home.
Yes.
And best business doing good for the planet under 200 employees. So I'm saying,
I want to give you a high five. That's so cool. And oh my gosh.
It feels super special because we were competing with Phoenix-based businesses. And normally not little, but like Northern Arizona and Phoenix are always kind of a separate thing, right? Like
Yep.
the businesses are bigger, they have larger customer bases, they have larger reach, scope of service, et cetera. So when they told us that, we were shocked, and then it's fun because my husband Brock, when he's on the route, he'll have customers come out of their house and be like, "We were voting for you. How are you guys doing? Did you win?" And it's just so darling and so supportive to know that the people who
Yes.
are our customers were the ones voting for us for that.
Absolutely.
It's
so
really,
cool.
really heartwarming. Yeah.
Oh
Super,
my
super
gosh.
cool. Yeah.
Yes. Congratulations,
Thank
first off.
you.
Like that is
Thank
so
you.
cool. Good. And again, I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. It's like you guys are doing something that is just all around good things, just positivity all the way around. And I have no doubt that's like your limit is only what you want it to be from yourself. It's like that's the only limit. It's like don't even worry about the idea of like you being in a certain market or area. It is as you put it on yourself. It's like if you want to be the best of the whole Arizona, you can be. And I think from a standpoint of just someone who's doing this podcasting thing and just kind of collecting stories, but it's like I think hearing this really helps other people who are doing their own business to really reach for the stars and do what they love most. Because if you do it and you do it right and you do it from your heart, you too can get those awards. You too can be heard from and seen as from your customer bases the best and the best of and things like that. So I mean, I myself, like I don't know if it's like I have a little bit of things that we've been a part of
Yay.
magazine wise that we've been voted
Congratulations.
for. Thank you.
Cool.
And it's just it means so much to us because
Yeah.
we when I started this, I was like, this is just gonna be a fun thing for me to do, like on my weekends and things like that. But it's really turned into this legacy piece that I can actually say it's like my son knows what I do.
Yeah.
He knows what a podcast is. He's like, Dad, go do podcast now. I'm like, yep, Dad goes do the
My
podcast
heart.
now. And so I want so much to leave something special for him that he knows Dad loved and Dad was passionate about and Dad had put his whole heart and soul into. So that is something that I think is so significant and so special to not only myself, but it's like every business owner, every entrepreneur should strive for that. And so that is hopefully what we can take away from today is like your only limit is yourself. That's the
Bravo.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Amen.
do what you can and do it right.
Yeah, I think it comes down to for us, like integrity is really important and like doing right by our community, doing right by our customers, doing what is in alignment with our values. That's always going to be foundational for us. And the fact that we get to do something that is so meaningful to us and that we have the relationships that we have with our community, with our customers. My husband always jokes his professional background is in freight. He worked on a dock doing all kinds of different things. And he said, I used to get customers calling and like screaming at me, like, where is my order? And you're this and that. He goes, now we have customers leaving us Christmas cards and
coming
cookies.
out to you saying congratulations,
exactly.
all these sweet things.
Yeah. And it's really it's amazing. Like sometimes it's kind of like a pinch me thing, but it's more motivation for us to do better, to do more, and to really just, again, to just operate in integrity with ourselves, with our community, and always show up in a way that can help others. And again, I just love bringing people together, just like you were saying, like for someone to tell you, I listened to this episode and it really made me think, or it really introduced me to this brand or whatever. It just, it fills you up, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's a special thing to be part of. And we're really fortunate that we get to do it together. It's like a family business. Yeah.
Exactly. And so with that, we will conclude our conversation today. I really thank you, Kathleen, from the bottom of my heart. Continue what you do and do it the best way you guys can. And I have no doubt that it'll blossom and grow into something so significant where you're like, we did it. We put the buckets in front of every one of those homes and we're proud of it. And so we usually end our little conversation by letting you promote and let everyone know where they can find you online, any Instagram, social media handles that you want to promote, and any events that you're going to be at that you want people to go check you out at. The floor is yours, Kathleen. Take it away.
That's so kind. That's so generous. Honestly, the best place to find us at online is just compostcrowd.com. If you live in the area or you live in Northern Arizona and you're like, hey, are you going to come to my neighborhood? interested, there's a little form, on the homepage that says like, if we're not in your area, please let us know where you're at so we can inform you if we come your way.
Yeah.
And if you want food scraps collection, obviously go to that sign up page. And then the place that I'm the most active on our brand online is Instagram. So we would love to make friends with you. If you want to just let us know what you're up to, if you have a restaurant that you'd like us to come have a conversation about, would love that. And then, like I said, I don't know when this is coming out, but the first week of November in Bolsa and Flagstaff, we're partnering with the city. So just be on the lookout for the pumpkin drop information because it's just a fun thing. To engage the community and stuff like that. So those are
awesome.
Those are probably the best places to find us.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. I really do appreciate you being on the show today. And then we have a little bit of our outro for ourselves. You can hear every episode of our podcast at findingarizonapodcast.com. All of our social media handles under Finding Arizona Podcast. And if you'd like to send us an email, findingarizonapodcast@gmail.com. And last but not least, we always say kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our four-legged friends. And we will see you next time. Bye, y'all.